Hey everybody, Josh with Design Smarts here with another app redesign video. In this video, we're going to be redesigning a little web app utility called PDF.to by Jonathan Nader. What this app does is you drop a file on it and it converts the file to or from a PDF. So say you have a PDF and you want to convert it into a Word doc file, you could just drop it on here and convert it in just a few clicks. Super useful app and something I wish I had many times in my life. So we're going to redesign this app first from a UX perspective to improve its usability. Then we're going to do a bit of styling to make it look just a little bit better. So let's get started. So we're going to start with this landing page. Here on my desktop, we have a couple of files that we're going to use to test the interface. One is a PDF and we want to convert it to a CSV file. And the other is a JPEG that we want to convert to a PDF. One of the goals of a good design is to make an interface intuitive. So if you look at this page for a minute, you might get the feeling that it's not very intuitive. Why is that? Part of the problem is this page has a confusing hierarchy. And a simple way to illustrate that is by doing the blur test. Now, if you're not familiar with the blur test, it's pretty simple. All you do is blur the page so you can't read any of the text, and you ask, can I guess what the primary action is from the layout alone? So let's try it. It's easy to set up the blur test in the browser now. We just have to open up Developer Tools, select the body tag, and enter Filter, Blur. Let's do 10 pixels. All right, so pretending like we don't know anything about the page, what do we think is the primary action? Well, my first guess, it's this big blue button right here in the center of the page. We have up here at the top what looks like a headline and maybe some introduction text here, but it looks like the thing that I want to do is click on this button right here. But if we refresh the page, we find that's not the case. The button actually opens another browser window with an animated GIF on how to use the tool. Now, instructions and onboarding are great things to have, but ideally, we first want to try to make the design as intuitive and self-explanatory as possible. Then we can add instructions if there's still potentially confusing interactions. The main action is not here in the center as you would expect, they're actually down here. And as you can see, there's a lot of them. So if I didn't look very closely or I didn't read the instructions, as the large majority of users do, I could have missed these. And if I went back and I did the blur test, these actually look more like footer navigation and not the primary actions on the page. So we're first going to convert our test PDF file to a CSV. And on closer inspection, we find that the action we want to click on is right here. So if we click on it, we find that this new page looks a lot closer to what we want. And if we do the blur test on this page as well, it's very apparent what we want to interact with is this giant green thing right in the center of the page. So let's take our test file, drop it on here. It converts. We have a download button, and boom, we have our converted file. Awesome. Let's go back to the homepage for a second. In our first test case, we want to convert a PDF to a CSV. Now, in our second test case, we want to turn a JPEG into a PDF. And this brings me to my second biggest problem with this page. It's making the user work too hard. In our second use case, the option I want is right here. None of this stuff is relevant to me, but I have to visually scan through them to find the option that I want. This is a lot of work. Even if I have a PDF, this stuff is relevant to me and this stuff is relevant to me, but none of these options apply to me. So one of the rules that I like to use when I design is don't make the user do work the computer can do. When I drop a file on here, the program can figure out what file type it is and what options are relevant to me. So let's see if we can shift some of the work from the user to the computer. First, we need to figure out the user flow of the app to see how we can improve it. We can do this by using some shorthand UI flow sketches. So I learned this technique from Ryan Singer. He's the lead designer over at Basecamp. I'll share a link to the article in which he explains how to do it down in the description below. So shorthand UI flows look something like this. You write what the user sees on the screen, then a line, and what the user does. You do an arrow, and then what the user sees next, what the user does next, so on and so forth. If you have a flow with branches, then you can illustrate them with a dotted line like this. So this is a great way to visualize the user flow without getting caught up in the UI, so you can focus on nailing the user flow first, then using that flow to design the UI. So what would the current user flow look like for converting a file? Here's a simple version of it. You see at the top there's 18 possible options. The user picks one, they see a drag and drop area, they drop a file, it gives them a link to download the new file, they download it, and they're done. Now, if we were to break out all those different branches, we start to see some of the complexity. What's interesting is that all of these different options take us to the exact same next page. I think there's an opportunity to reduce some of the complexity by starting with this page. So what would it look like if we did that? So this is a new user flow I came up with. For all of these different types, the only option is to convert it to a PDF. So we can drastically reduce the amount of decisions they have to make by simply detecting it and taking them directly to the conversion. Easy. PDFs are the most complex case, and even then, we can cut the options nearly in half. So for all cases, this is a huge reduction in the amount of mental work the user has to do to pick the right thing and get their file converted. So let's take this new user flow and use it to design the interface. So we've imported our landing page and the conversion page into Sketch. So let's get started on our redesign. The thing that we want in the beginning is this big drag and drop area, and we want to bring it to the landing page. So let's do that first. Now we can get rid of all of these options. Adding the big drag and drop area makes the page more intuitive, so I think we can get rid of the instructions, and if we need them, we can bring them back later. What else could we do to improve the interface? Down here we have this featured on section. Now, normally I'm all for these featured on sections, but the problem is the names that we have in here aren't really well known. I think that can actually do more harm than good. So I would get rid of all of these except for Product Hunt, because Product Hunt is well known within the tech industry. Other than that, I would remove all of these. Now the list of options was informing users about which file types were supported, so we'll need to add those back in here. Now this description at the top looks a little repetitive, so let's rewrite this to make it a little tighter. Now we can clean up this drag and drop area and move this footer a little bit up. All right, now that's looking pretty good, so let's move on to the conversion page. Let's design the user flow of converting a PDF to a Word doc. That way we can get some of the complexity in here and it'll still apply to converting other file types to a PDF. I'd like to use some icons on this page. A set that I really like is called Pycons. Now we need the list of different file types that we can convert to. So we can grab the list from over here. And I'm going to show you a quick trick that I use for formatting text. What I do is grab a list like this, and then we'll open up a text editor like Atom. So I select the comma and the space, and I hit Command D to select every copy of that. Then I can replace that with an Enter. Boom, format a list right there. You can copy and paste this into Sketch. We use my plugin Split Text Line to Layers. I'll put the link down in the description for that as well, and give this a little space. The other thing we need to add in here is the PDF tools, so let's go and grab those. All right, now let's see if we can format this a little bit better. I think a grid will probably be a good way to display these, so let's start laying these out. Drawing boxes around these help normalize the text and make them look a little bit more clickable, so let's draw boxes around each of them so that we can lay this out in a grid. Now let's add a headline of convert for these and tools for these. All right, let's design the next page as if they selected doc as the conversion type. So let's grab an icon for doc, and let's make the button convert and download. All right, that's looking pretty good. Let's go to the next page of in progress. So the only thing we'll do here is we'll take the button, drop the opacity, easy. Now let's design the success page. So we'll add some text up at the top that says the conversion was successful. And rather than having the user click a button to download, let's just download the file automatically. And we'll make the button to download again in case the browser didn't automatically start it or it was blocked for some reason. And there we have a brand new, much more usable user flow. This already is a big improvement over the previous flow, but I think we can improve the site even more by doing a little bit of styling and make it look more aesthetically pleasing. So let's go back to the home page and start styling it. One of the ways that I like to tackle a redesign if I don't have an existing brand that I'm working off of is to pick a design element and building a theme around that item. So I was browsing Codepen one day and I came across the awesome profile of Darin Senneff. Darin creates a lot of amazing little code experiments. One of the ones that caught my eye was this 3D Mad Scientist switch box. You can see that when we click on it, it flips the switch and then has this like lightning on the inside. I think this is the perfect example for this conversion page. So we're gonna take this element and we're gonna see if we can work our design around this. So I created a fork of this and tweaked some of the colors to find something that is a little moody, something that's like a dark night sky. So we're going to take this element and we're going to design around this. The first thing that I think we can do is get rid of this navigation. This is a one-page app. We don't need a nav. This looks repetitive, so we can get rid of one of these. I think we can also get rid of the background for the footer as well. So let's bring in some of those elements. Let's first bring in the dark background and we'll make the text white. And I think we can change from the green to a low opacity white. And let's bring in our mad scientist switch box. I think we can kind of use this as a logo, but also an interactive element. So let's bring it in here and let's put the text inside of it. Another area that I think we can improve is picking a better font. One font that looks a little bit more technical that I think would be a good fit is Source Sans Pro. We can find it on Google Fonts, so let's integrate that into here. Now let's fix some of this text. Let's make the area smaller, let's center it vertically, and let's make it one line. And for the Product Hunt badge, let's swap it from this dark one to their lighter version. Next, let's change the language button. We'll add a new icon in there and we'll make an outline and put it in the top right hand corner. And the last thing I'll fix is changing some of these links down here. We'll switch it from NaderMX to Jonathan Nader because he should be proud of this awesome site that he's made. The last thing I want to add is just a little bit of a gradient in the background to give it a little bit more depth. All right, this is looking awesome. Let's continue on with the next page. We'll start by copying over some of the elements from the previous page. We'll change the icon and the text to white, change our fonts, then we'll change these backgrounds to low opacity white as well. Now we'll tweak the arrow to make it look a little better, soften up some of the corners, and drop the opacity. We'll keep going by copying all these elements and bringing them over to the next page. We'll tweak the text and icon color and add the button back in there. And we'll tweak the button color a little bit. We can copy a lot of this over to the in progress page. This is also the page where we want to flip the switch on the Mad Scientist box. So let's go grab a copy of that, bring it in here and swap it out. All we have left is the success page. Let's swap our box back. Let's tweak some of the design for the success page, make sure everything's aligned. And there we have it. That's our redesign of PDF.to. Let me know down in the comments what you think of the redesign, whether you think it's better or worse. I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.